My name is Avery Whitman. I'm 32 and on paper, everything looks fine. I work as a senior financial consultant in Chicago, far removed from the manicured lawns and country club gossip of my childhood in Greenwich, Connecticut. The Whitman name still opens doors in East Coast circles, but those doors always felt more like walls to me. My younger brother Eli became the golden child our parents expected to carry the family legacy. I was the one who left, chasing numbers instead of courtrooms, choosing independence over approval. I've spent my adult life insisting I didn't mind being the outsider. The truth is, it still stung. Nothing prepared me for the moment I realized I wasn't simply being left out. I was being erased from my own brother's wedding. Have you ever been excluded from a family milestone, made to feel like you didn't count? If that resonates, your story could help someone else step away with dignity instead of anger. The call came on a Wednesday between two client meetings. My phone flashed with the contact I now associate more with obligation than comfort. Mom. I answered, bracing for small talk that always felt like thinly veiled criticism. Her voice was syrupy. Darling, guess what? Eli's getting married. It hit harder than I expected. Like hearing news about someone you used to be close to, but now only follow on LinkedIn. I swallowed the sting and offered the expected response. That's amazing, Mom. Who is she? Oh, you don't know her, she said breezily. Sloane Carrington, very poised. Her father and your dad go way back. Of course, a Whitman never marries for love. We merge. I asked the obvious follow-up. When's the wedding? There was a short pause, long enough. In my family, pauses mean everything. They're still working out the details, she said. Very busy families. I know how weddings go. I've handled clients' financial timelines far more complex than a society wedding. Still, I played along, assuming a save the date would arrive. It didn't. What showed up instead was a photo from an old high school friend still in Greenwich circles. My mother and Sloane's mother holding cream-colored linen swatches, captioned with hashtags. Hatch Carrington Whitman, 2 Anson 25. Another photo showed Eli at a tux fitting, my father beside him grinning like a man sealing a corporate merger. No one called me. I messaged Eli, hey, just saw some wedding stuff. Excited for you. Would love to hear more. Call me when you can. He replied 8 hours later, thanks, busy week. Talk soon. I waited for soon. It never came. The illusion shattered when Natalie Chen, a mutual childhood friend, texted, hey, just got Eli save the date, June 15th, hope you're coming. It's black tie. I checked my mailbox. Nothing. That night I sat on my living room floor, among unopened Amazon boxes, feeling a strange pressure in my chest. I stared at my empty inbox, as if an invitation might appear if I blinked hard enough. That's when the realization set in. This wasn't a mistake or oversight. It was deliberate. I poured a glass of wine, looked at the Lake Michigan skyline, and let the emotions come. Betrayal, anger, the hollow ache of watching my family close a door. I hadn't fully left them. I hadn't been forgotten. I had been erased. The flight to New York was sleepless. I replayed memories of Eli and me making blanket forts. Late-night jokes about Dad's pompous dinner speeches. The time I taught him to tie a tie because our father was too busy with litigation briefs to teach him himself. It all looped like a grainy home video, underscoring the quiet truth. Eli had chosen this. At JFK, I didn't check into a hotel. I had a suitcase, a phone at 10% battery, and a truth I needed to face. Greenwich was an hour away. As the cab passed the tree-lined streets of my childhood, I felt the familiar clench in my stomach. The Whitman house looked unchanged, hedges trimmed precisely, the brass W on the gate still gleaming. Everything looked as it should, except I wasn't expected. A catering van sat in the driveway. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I saw servers in black vests setting crystal on a long table. My mother stood by the fireplace directing people with practiced composure. I rang the doorbell. A young catering assistant opened it, glanced at my suitcase and then at me. I smiled and stepped past her. When I walked into the dining room, everything froze. My mother was halted mid-sentence. champagne flute suspended. My father looked up from a guest list with the same expression he used when a junior partner misfiled a brief. Eli sat at the head of the table beside a stunning blonde in an ivory pantsuit. He didn't stand, he didn't look up. "My name is Avery," my mother said sharply. "What are you doing here?" "I heard there was a brunch," I said calmly. "Thought I'd surprise everyone." The silence that followed was suffocating. Sloane blinked, then turned to Eli. "You have a sister," she said. Not cruel, just as if she'd noticed a missing chapter in a book she'd read twice. Eli didn't respond. "Let's talk privately," my mother said, taking my arm with a grip that felt like another performance. She led me into my father's study as if sweeping dirt under a rug, shut the door softly, and leaned against it. "You were not invited for a reason," she said. I stared, waiting for a lie. She didn't bother. "This wedding is important for the family, for the Carringtons. We didn't want distractions. You made your choice, Chicago independence, money over legacy. You don't represent what we need this event to reflect." There was a long pause. Then she looked me in the eye and added, "This is for people we actually love." At the moment, it didn't sting. It landed cold and quiet. My father entered shortly after, hands clasped behind his back as if presiding over a board meeting. "We've built a very specific image, Avery," he said. "You've chosen not to be part of it. Don't ask us to pretend otherwise." "Does Eli agree?" I asked softly. "He does," my mother said. I should have walked out then. Part of me still hoped Eli would show up for me. I waited. Minutes later, he entered, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. He couldn't bring himself to meet my eyes. "Sloane didn't know I had a sister," I said. "Are you going to tell her?" He sighed. "It's easier this way," he said. "Easier." His silence was my answer. At that point, I knew I was done asking for a seat at a table they had already cleared of me. I didn't say goodbye. I walked out into the cold Connecticut air and flagged the first car I saw. If I was no longer part of their family, maybe I could finally start building my own. Back in Chicago, I left my suitcase by the door and collapsed on the couch without taking off my coat. The silence felt heavier than usual, as if the air itself had absorbed my disappointment and didn't know what to do with it. I stared at the ceiling, hearing my mother's voice again, calm, untroubled. "This is for people we actually love." That line had cut something vital, not because it surprised me, but because I realized I'd spent most of my life pretending it wasn't true. I didn't cry at first. The tears came later in the shower, when the heat made my skin burn, and I couldn't tell if the steam around me was from the water or shame. That night, I opened the top drawer of my desk and pulled out an envelope labeled in Sharpie, "Family Events." Inside was a folder with budgeting notes for anniversaries, potential wedding gifts, and flights to the East Coast. A list of hope. Basically itemized. There was $22,000 in an untouched savings account. I'd imagined using that money for the Whitmans' 25th anniversary or for Eli's eventual wedding. Maybe even to fly friends in from around the country, if I could convince myself they wanted me there. Now I wanted it back. The next morning I called Riley. She picked up on the second ring. "I take it the brunch was a scene," I said, staring out at the lake. "You were uninvited officially," she replied after a pause. Another pause. Then, "They told me the wedding is for people they actually love." There was a sharper silence. "You know what I think?" Riley said finally. "You've been trying to win their approval like it's a merit badge. What would happen if you stopped?" I didn't have an answer then. That evening, I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and typed solo travel destinations for women healing from family trauma. Bali kept appearing, spiritual, lush, peaceful, a place where things can fall apart gently so they can be rebuilt with intention. I opened my bank account. The $22,000 stared back like an apology. The next 48 hours were a blur. Flights booked, A villa reserved, time off requested. I emailed my boss, Sarah, asking for personal leave. She replied within the hour, "Take whatever time you need. You've earned it." I didn't tell my family I was going. Why would I? They hadn't told me I wasn't invited. I packed deliberately, light but intentional. A journal, a camera I'd neglected. The red silk dress I'd never found an occasion for. Before heading to the airport, I posted one image to my Instagram story, a quote over a sunset background. Sometimes the family you find is better than the one you were born into. Then I turned off notifications and put my phone in airplane mode. The journey was long, Chicago to LA, a 12-hour stretch to Singapore, and a final leg into Denpasar. I barely slept. I read, wrote in my journal, and watched strangers around me talking softly. When I stepped off the plane and inhaled Bali's thick, fragrant air for the first time, something shifted. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. Let them plan their wedding. I'm planning my freedom. Bali wrapped around me like warm silk, humid, vibrant, unapologetically alive. The villa in Ubud sat on the edge of a ravine, surrounded by endless green rice terraces that stepped down like nature's staircase. My first days were filled with what I hadn't allowed myself in years. Nothing. No deadlines, no buzzing phone, no performative holiday calls. I ate mango for breakfast, practiced slow morning yoga on the terrace, and slept until my body woke on its own. I smiled at strangers, and they smiled back without expectation. By day 5, my phone was still off. No email, no Greenwich worries beyond a few passing flinches. I was finally exhaling until the front desk rang the villa line. "Miss Whitman," the clerk said, "a woman called Claire. She says she's your father's assistant." Something tightened in my stomach. Reluctantly, I turned my phone on. 10 missed calls and a voicemail from Claire Robbins, my father's longtime assistant. "Miss Whitman, I hope this finds you well. I've been asked to inform you that the wedding has been postponed indefinitely." That was it. A single sentence dropped into my calm like a stone. I called Natalie Chen, the one friend who still knew both worlds. She answered, breathless. "Are you sitting down?" she asked. Apparently, 3 days before the wedding, Sloane's father received an anonymous tip. A background check uncovered massive gambling debts in Eli's name. Nearly $500,000 across sports betting, poker, and loans taken against Sloane's trust without her knowledge. It was a PR disaster. The Carringtons pulled out. The Whitmans scrambled. My father refused to cover the debt. He said Eli needed to face consequences. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Then the messages began. "Mom, call us. It's urgent." "Dad, family crisis. Your professional help is required." The irony was sharp. I wasn't invited to celebrate, but I was suddenly needed to clean up. Protect the Whitman name, of course. I ignored them all. Then Eli called. I stared at the screen before answering. "Avis," he said, small, broken. "I know I don't deserve to ask, but I need help. I'm drowning." He explained they were cutting him off. Everyone was using words like reputation and embarrassment. "I made bad mistakes," he said. "You're the only one who can help me fix this." "Why now?" I asked. "Why is this the moment I become your sister again?" He was quiet. "I didn't think it would go this far," he whispered. "I thought if I followed the path, everything would work out, even if that meant forgetting I existed." His voice softened into something I hadn't heard in years. Uncertain, pleading. I said nothing. I was done being their fire extinguisher. "I'm not sending you money," I said. "And I'm not coming home to put out your fires. Not anymore." He begged. I held firm. "I already saved myself, Eli. You'll have to figure out how to do the same." Then I did something that surprised me. I turned my phone off and handed it to Kit, the villa's driver, asking him to keep it for 3 days, no matter what. He smiled and nodded. As he walked away, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. You can't ghost me for years and expect me to pick up your ashes. I woke the next morning without the usual weight. No buzzing, no unread messages. Just birdsong, frangipani drifting through the open terrace doors, and rare stillness. Kit had kept his promise. My phone was out of reach. More importantly, my reflexes were quiet. I walked barefoot to the kitchen, made strong Balinese coffee, and watched mist roll over rice fields. For the first time since my mother said I wasn't loved, clarity rose up. That morning, I asked Kit to take me somewhere quiet and sacred. He knew the place, Tirtha Empul Holy Water Temple. We drove winding jungle roads until we reached a stone archway draped in marigolds. Locals moved in quiet devotion, offering fruit and incense. No cameras, no crowds, just reverence. Kit handed me a sarong and sash. "You must wear this for the ceremony and open your heart," he said. Inside the temple, the air was cool and wet. Water streamed from stone mouths into a long pool where pilgrims moved slowly, heads bowed to the cleansing spring. I stepped in and the cold hit my skin. I gasped, then breathed deeper as the sarong's hem floated around me like a forgotten story. One by one I stood beneath each spout, letting water fall over my head, my shoulders, my chest. I whispered names under my breath, my father, my mother, Eli, and spoke memories I hadn't voiced in years. Then, quietly, I said something I hadn't expected. "I release you." My voice cracked. The words felt fragile but true. I released the need to be enough for them. I released the version of me who begged to be seen. The final spout poured over me like thunder. When I opened my eyes, I couldn't tell if the wetness was water or the tears I'd stopped holding back. Kit handed me a towel afterward without saying anything. Back at the villa, I changed and curled up with my journal. The pages filled by sunset. That evening, I wandered into Ubud's center for dinner. Perched above the sacred monkey forest, I ordered coconut water and watched the trees. A couple asked to join my table, Sarah and Daniel, honeymooners from Melbourne, and we talked easily. I told them I'd come because I'd been intentionally left out of my brother's wedding. Daniel frowned, and Sarah leaned in. "My parents didn't come to ours either," Daniel said. "They said I wasn't culturally suitable." But I stopped letting them define my life the day I said I do. Then Daniel added something I won't forget. "The family you choose is just as real as the one you're born into. Maybe more." That night I lit a candle and wrote one word at the top of a fresh journal page. Home. If this is where the past ends, maybe it's where I begin. I returned to Chicago 2 days before the original wedding date. Not the version curated for survival, but the one I was choosing. I eased back into work with a focus I hadn't known in years. Meetings were sharper, my thoughts clearer. Clients noticed my presence and intuition. Something inside me had shifted. Then an email arrived. Subject: "Thank you." It was from Eli. He wrote that he'd entered treatment for his gambling addiction, moved out of our parents' home, and had begun to unravel who he'd become and why. "You were right to say no," he wrote. "You helped me more by not saving me. I'm not proud of how I treated you. I can't undo it, but I'm trying to understand it, and myself." There was no pleading, just acknowledgement. I replied 2 days later, "I'm glad you're getting help. I'm not ready for much more than this, but I appreciate the honesty. Take care of yourself, Eli." Months passed. We started talking slowly. One phone call a week, sometimes more, sometimes less. It was awkward at first. We were learning a new language together, built from scratch rather than the brittle phrases our parents had handed us. Then came Thanksgiving. I hosted it in my Chicago apartment, not in Greenwich, not in a family estate with white tablecloths and silent judgment. Mismatched chairs, candlelight, a potluck spread of Thai curry, pumpkin, mac and cheese, and too much red wine. Riley brought homemade stuffing and sunflowers. Marcus and David arrived with pie and bad jokes. Bisha came with her new girlfriend, hand in hand. 20 minutes into dinner, Eli walked in. He looked thinner, softer, not broken but rebuilding. He handed me a bottle of wine and offered a tentative smile. "I didn't want to show up empty-handed," he said. "You didn't," I replied, and I meant it. Later, we stood on the balcony overlooking the city. The skyline shimmered. Laughter spilled from the living room below. "I never thought a holiday could feel like this," Eli said, sipping cider. Like it's not a performance. It's not, I said. It's people who show up because they want to. That's the only kind of family that matters. He nodded, and we let the silence between us stretch. Not uncomfortable, but whole. Family, I realized, isn't built from obligation. It's forged in quiet moments when people choose you again and again, not because they have to, but because they want to. I thought I needed to fight to belong in a house that never had room for me. What I needed was to build my own table.